Hello, friends. I'm Rita Boyer, the educator at Prospect Presbyterian Church in Maplewood, New Jersey. Thank you for joining me for the ConnectEd lesson for January the 17th. Have you ever had to tell someone bad news? Ooh, it's not easy. Were you nervous? Did you practice or at least think about what you were going to say beforehand? How did you do it? And how did it make you feel? Well, if you have ever had to tell someone bad news, you'll know how the boy in today's Bible story felt. Our story comes from 1 Samuel chapter 3, the first 20 verses. But I'll be sharing it with you as it is told in Growing in God's Love Story Bible, edited by Elizabeth Caldwell and Carol Wareheim. I'm grateful for this book that was published by Flyaway Books, and for the opportunity to share this story with you today online. The story is titled, Samuel Tells a Hard Truth. Samuel, a young boy, lived in God's temple. He helped Eli, the priest, who also lived in the temple. Samuel loved God. Eli loved God too, but Eli's sons didn't follow God's ways. They did terrible things. Though Eli loved his sons, God was angry about the things they did. Now in those days, the priest's sons became priests too, but because they were so bad, Eli's sons could not become priests. Someone had to tell Eli. That someone was the boy Samuel, who helped Eli. One night, while Samuel and Eli were asleep, Samuel heard someone call, Samuel. Samuel thought it was Eli. So he got up, hurried to Eli, and said, Here I am. Eli said, I didn't call you. Go back to sleep. Then it happened again. Samuel, Samuel. Samuel ran to Eli. Here I am. Again, Eli said, I didn't call you. Go back to sleep. A third time, Samuel heard his name, and he went to Eli. I'm here, he said. You called me. This time, Eli knew that God had called Samuel. But Samuel had never heard God call him, so he didn't know. Samuel, said Eli, listen for your name again. When you hear it, say, Yes, I am listening. When Samuel heard his name again, he said, Yes, I am listening. Then God gave Samuel this hard message for Eli. Samuel, I'm getting ready to do something that will make people's ears tingle. Eli's sons are bad. They do terrible things. They have disobeyed me. They will not be priests like their father. In the morning, Eli asked Samuel what God had said. Samuel told Eli the bad news about his sons. Eli said, God is God. God makes the right decisions. When Samuel first heard his name being called, he didn't know that it was God's voice. I wonder if God were to call us, if we would know that it was God's voice. And I wonder what that would sound like. Of course, God asked Eli to do something that wasn't easy, to tell the truth, even though it would hurt Eli. And to tell the truth to someone who was older than Samuel was, someone who was Samuel's teacher, like a parent to Samuel. That's a tough job. But Samuel knew that he needed to obey God, and he did. Sounds like God chose the right person for the job. I wonder if the reason we don't hear God speaking to us sometimes is because we're not listening. We spend a lot of time talking to God. Isn't that what our prayers are? We talk to God. But do we listen for God? Someone once taught me that prayers are like a phone call. We can't see the person on the other end, but we are talking to them. Well, if I called my grandmother to thank her for her Christmas gift and to have a talk with my grandma, just imagine if I said, "Hi, Grandma, it's Rita. Oh, thanks so much for that gift. It's exactly what I wanted. I love it. How did you know? Thank you so much. I'm just so grateful that you gave that to me. But while I have you on the phone, there is something else that you could give me. How about, and there's this other thing that you could do for me and my friend. Oh, my friend could really use your help too. So maybe Grandma, could you do this for my friend too? I really appreciate it. You know I love you, Grandma. Okay, yeah, it's been really great talking to you, Grandma. Bye-bye." Poor Grandma. Do you think Grandma feels very loved after that phone call? I didn't listen. I did all the talking. But sometimes I admit my prayers are like that too. So how do we listen in our prayers? Well, some of you may remember the breath prayer that I've taught a couple of times, where you breathe in, slowly hold it a little bit, and then breathe out. Let's try that. Breathe in and breathe out. And sometimes we can think certain words or phrases or sentences as we are doing that. We think them silently. Okay, so we're saying those words in our head, but we're not really saying them out loud. So when we breathe in, if we say, "Here I am," silently. And when we breathe out, say, "I am listening." Breathe in. "Here I am." Breathe out. "I am listening." Breathe in. "Here I am." Breathe out. "I am listening." I wonder how that would change our prayers if we did that and then spend some time just listening to the thoughts that come to our minds and to our hearts. We spend some time listening for God. I wonder what God would be asking us to do. Would you please pray with me? Loving God, here I am. I am listening. Help us to hear and obey your voice. Amen. Before I go, I want to show you the activity sheet that is on the Faith Formation website, ppcfaithformation.org, on the children's page. You'll find this picture of Samuel, and this is the Ark of the Covenant. You remember Samuel lived in the temple, and this was in the temple. And there's Samuel's bed. It says to use a paper fastener once you've cut Samuel out, and then he can get out of bed and back in. But if you don't have a paper fastener, you can tape or glue the bottom half of Samuel on the bed and then fold it right around where his arm is so that he sits up and then would lie back down. And you can use that to retell the story to someone in your family, or just to remind yourself of this week's story. We thanks to the people at Seasons of the Spirit for this activity sheet and giving us permission to use it in this way. And thank you for joining me. Bye-bye. Have a great week.